would you look at the time? Guess what time it is? Go ahead, guess. I'm not doing this show alone, you know.
You sure?
Trying not to.
I'm still wondering if Chris is old enough to know who the police is. He's a young guy.
Yeah, I know. Come on, Song of the Year 1983. Casey, help me out here. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Wow. We're the old
15 years before I was even born.
We're the old guys on the show.
Yes, we are. Yes.
All right. Well, we've been doing this show since long before you were born, probably. So
yeah, pretty much.
I mean, when did we start KCIM Sports Rewind?
Probably 19 years old or so. 19 years old.
It's getting to be almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So
we should figure that out sometime.
If we want to feel really old sometime, we'll figure all that stuff out. So all right, you did mention Chris Cuellar. He is with the Athletic Association, is on the phone with us. Comes on with us once or twice a year to kind of talk about an update on sports. And first of all, the burning question, Chris, do you remember the police?
Yeah, Sting was hot when I was like a kid, so I mean.
All right. Yeah, I mean, that was formidable part of my growing up years.
Yes.
All right, so that's established now. Chris, you're coming on to talk a little bit about sports and baseball specifically. Carroll keeping the state baseball tournament. Let's dive into that topic. How big of a discussion was it about Carroll and the possibility of the state tournament leaving Carroll?
I can't answer the latter part because it wasn't discussed, John. I love being there. We love being there. As you all know and report on throughout the week, whenever we have been there since 2021, the red carpet is rolled out. Merchants Park is seeing countless improvements that I'm sure you guys have been detailing and updating, and we are excited to work with the folks from the city, from the Chamber of Commerce, from Merchants Park, from Carroll High, from Kemper High. It is a community effort. It's a team effort, and we were excited to be able to lock that back up and then make that announcement once all the moving parts came together for us last week, be able to release what our state sites are going to be for the next 4 years.
Well, you said there wasn't much discussion about it. Was it because nobody else put in for the tournament, or is it just because Carroll was excelling at it?
Definitely the latter. I mean, we're very comfortable there, and I think they're comfortable hosting us. And I mean, it was a pretty easy discussion about where we wanted to keep the tournament, and then that's right down Highway 30 from where I'm talking to you right now.
Chris, Jeff Blankman here. You mentioned that Carroll and the community rolls out the red carpet for you guys. Do you find when you go to other places to hold tournaments that you get the kind of volunteers that you do here, and then kind of as well with the project that the city of Carroll is doing? How important was that in being able to keep the state baseball tournament?
Oh, I mean, I think it's just part of the package, Jeff. I mean, there are no other sites that we get a smiling face with a golf cart pulling you 50 yards up to the front gate where you can walk right in, buy a cheap steak sandwich, and then find your seat. That is one of a kind. So we can't necessarily compare that across all sports, but we do seek feedback after every single tournament. We do a tournament review in-house and with people who work our events, and I can just tell you that over the last 4 years, it has been just rave reviews for Carroll, for Merchants Park, and the idea that the community is willing and interested to keep improving the ballpark and retain the tournament is great news for us.
He can't be talking about Honnold in a golf cart when he said he has a smile.
Him by name.
That has to be one of the better volunteers, I would think, wouldn't you think, Jeff?
Yeah, and I would say, Chris, that that's the only thing he's talented enough to do is pick you up on a golf cart and drive you to the stadium.
Yeah, even the driving of the golf cart's a little shaky from time to time.
Yeah.
I love to bust his chops as much as anybody else, but Jeff Honnold has been an excellent staple for our event. He's an excellent host. He and his wife and all of his family members have been fixtures for us, and part of the reason we love coming back.
I would agree with the family part, but Jeff, we're not going to give him too many props on this show. Talk about the facility itself, Merchants Park. There's a lot of improvements going on. I just saw that Chris Whitaker posted some of the ADA compliant bleachers are now in place at the stadium, so the work kind of continues. Was there a list of things that you guys gave the city of Carroll to say, hey, you might want to work on this for your facility?
I would say it was collaborative, at least from the outset. And then, it's always up to the communities and the ballparks themselves to figure out what they can actually get done, right? It's easy for us to say, well, just build a whole new outfield and put in a shop in the back and, we'll be right there. But it's a lot harder for people to pull off. And, lights are very expensive. Bleachers are very expensive and time intensive. And anybody who probably drove past Merchants Park for a couple months there would know what the undertaking it is to pull up those cement anchors from decades old bleachers and redo those things. But like any venue, John, there's a couple of things that if this was a little bit, as an example, if dugouts were a little bigger, that's a consideration we get. Well, they're fixing that. If it was a little easier to get into the bleachers and you could sit a little higher to see above the dugout and see the field, well, they're fixing that too. So a collaborative effort on what things can be improved and then what's realistic in the timeline for any ballpark or any facility that we go to. But it just so happens that they're pulling them all off in one fell swoop.
Chris, I know as a media guy, the media people are probably going to be really happy to the upgrades and the changes to the media area. Now, I know last summer there was some discussion because you guys still weren't for sure 100% what you were going to do with 3A, 4A, that there could be a chance to move. Was there really any discussion of bringing 3A, 4A to Carroll for a year or two until things with the other stadiums and other places worked out?
Yeah, Jeff, I think everything was on the table in terms of what places will and can capably host us for that event, and what changes might that do to the entire regular season or postseason schedule across the state, which I know it might be easy for outsiders to say, we'll just bump everything up a week and have the tournament, a little bit earlier. But that changes literally everything for quite literally hundreds of schools. So we did discuss briefly, what that might look like, and folks from Carroll were receptive and open to those conversations. But fortunately for us and for 3A, 4A, it's not 9 or 10 days of workload on one community to host this tournament. We can have it in a reasonable amount of time without changing the overall schedule. And so we are excited to go to Sioux City next summer.
I was going to say, yeah, Sioux City is an interesting pick there for the 3A, 4A. But going back to Carroll real quick, how many years is this contract for again?
So 4 years, John. So it will, by the end of the term, be 8 years in Carroll. So starting in 25, it'll be the first part of a 4-year extension.
So is there any talk about just kind of making anything permanent at all? Or are you just going to go with, we'll do 4 years at a time and see how it goes?
What I would say about super long-term contracts is that they haven't always played out well for the Athletic Association. If anybody is aware or apprised of our current media rights arrangement, so I think our board, our staff, everybody seems to be a little more comfortable with some of these extensions, and I think making it a 4-year deal to take it all the way out to 8 years. I mean, that's as close to permanent as we're probably going to get this day and age.
What if we threw in Jeff Honnold in a golf cart forever? Would that change your mind?
As long as Blankman picks him up at the end of the night.
Yeah, I sometimes have to. Chris, have you guys had the arm wrestling yet, or the decision on who's coming back to Carroll this summer, and did you win?
There's never any arm wrestling. I'm coming, so that's an easy decision for me. Again, Jeff, we joke, but Jeff is one of a number of outstanding hosts that we have there, and a reason that a lot of our staff really does love coming back.
It's like calling shotgun, I guess. Yes. I got Carroll. I'm calling dibs on that one. So talk about Sioux City. Why there?
Sioux City?
Yeah. Why is that? Why that location? Because it's so far off to the west.
We've never had a state tournament there, which is actually kind of exciting. They have an excellent ballpark. We toured, I can't even tell you how many facilities across the state. And last I checked, guys, it is in the state of Iowa. So that argument is gone, that it's in South Dakota or Nebraska. So
I say only part of it is in Iowa.
The folks from the northwest corner of the state have to come down to everyone else for everything else. This is a 1-week celebration with a capable facility and a host that we're really interested in trying out. And they, again, we're willing and able to host this event. So we're excited to be there.
Chris, I think it's awesome that you guys are taking it up to Sioux City in Northwest Iowa, having driven up to Northwest Iowa for a lot of football playoffs and volleyball playoffs and even some baseball and softball over the years, in regular season games.
Well,
we know the
Chris
travel.
Chris has some say in that, too.
Yes. But knowing how long that drive is, I can't imagine what those Northwest Iowa folks go through having to drive to the state tournaments everywhere. So I'm sure they appreciate that very much.
Yeah, I saw a handful of comments from the opposite corner of the state being like, I can't believe you're sending us all the way over here, but what about every team that's qualified that has to go all the way over there every time? So, again, we were fortunate that Sioux City was willing and able to take us, and it should be a really fun trial run. As we stated in the release, it was part of a long-term plan to put together, a more, I'll use your word, John, more permanent set of sites. So that included a 3-year extension with the Cedar Rapids Colonels and a little bit of arranging a jigsaw puzzle there. So it will go back to Cedar Rapids from 26 to 28. I know that sounds like a long time from now, but I promise it's not. So we'll finish out the term there. But again, we've never had a tournament in Sioux City of any kind. So I think we're really excited to try that out, and they're excited to have us.
Chris, winter sports season already underway. Any changes, anything that anybody really needs to know with this season that is already almost to the halfway point with the Christmas holiday break coming up?
No, we can walk through each of those sports. Swimming is going to stay in Iowa City for us in early February. The dual team tournament will have, I think, its 3rd year at Extreme Arena. That first weekend in February. So if you have any qualifiers or area qualifiers for that'll be in Coralville for 1 day only. State wrestling, the schedule, it is what it is. We're not going to mess too much with that, but it is the 100th. IHSAA state-sanctioned wrestling tournament, so we'll be rolling out a few bells and whistles for that, and I'm excited to kind of get that announcement going in early January. State basketball, we've got our first set of rankings coming out in early January. Our committee has already met and kind of sorted through some teams. Kemper's pretty good this year locally, so we've talked about a handful of squads there, and so we'll have our rankings coming out in January and February. And then state tournament in early March at Wells Fargo Arena. Again, a change that if you're not a huge basketball fan, you might not care about, but if you're really plugged in, it will be a big change. I think we'll announce soon the specifics on a schedule rotation for the state tournament. Not something we've done before either, but it'll go straight reverse from what we've usually done. So the week will start with 4A. And then go down to 1A. So even the championship day will be the same way. So we're talking early start for 4A, then 3A, then 2A, then 1A. So little change of scenery there for everybody. That came out of the coaches advisory committee. They wanted to kind of rotate the schedule and stop the same classes from playing 3 times in 3 days. So we're excited to kind of try that out as well.
Well, we're still breaking in the new sport here, bowling, for Carroll and Kemper. They both started that sanctioned sport this year. Give me a little background on this. How many high schools you got participating in this sport, and is it growing for you guys?
Yeah, it has kind of plateaued out, but it's just around 140 schools at last check. It is a very popular sport for co-ops simply because the availability of bowling alleys. So you usually see a community that has it take on 2, 3, 4 schools as part of their program so that they can fill out their roster and they all have a centralized place to bowl. If any listeners haven't been to state bowling, it legitimately is the one tournament that I recommend people check out and try out because it is a unique and awesome environment. And given the space of bowling alleys and Cadillac lanes up in Waterloo where we have the state tournament, it is a capacity crowd for everything. The kids cheer on each other, and it's really a unique event that I recommend big sports fans try to attend at some point.
Well, hopefully we'll have the opportunity to come up someday, Chris. It does sound like it might be growing again here. I'm hearing rumors that we may have anywhere from 2 to 4 of our area schools adding bowling as a school here, maybe in the next 2 to 3, 4 years.
That'd be great news. Yeah, it went through an expansion probably 4 or 5 years ago, pretty sizable one, and then they added a third classification. That is still happening. But as long as bowling alleys can support hosting schools, then I think hopefully our schools continue to look at adding those programs.
Do you guys really keep a tabs pretty closely on participation as far as the boys go in sports? And where's that going? Is wrestling gaining, or is basketball gaining, or is anybody really gaining more participants?
No, in terms of high school, varsity sports or even across high school sports, a lot of things have been pretty level, I would say. John, with the arc of time looking at it, Iowa's population peaked 15 to 20 years ago at this point, and so that was the peak for high school participation as well. It dropped off in the 2010s, and then we kind of have a clear dividing line with the pandemic because we obviously didn't even have spring sports, and then numbers were adjusted for almost all of 2020, 2021. So what we have seen is that sports have pretty much gotten back to that level that they were right around 2019, 2020, as we last categorized them. Football is not in the, free-fall or crisis mode that it might have been in 10 or 15 years ago when I think those were discussions. If you look at it compared to 25 years ago, it's going to look down, but I think we've been pretty comfortable with the level that most of them are at. Soccer, cross-country, bowling, kind of different sports that are all doing well and rising depending on the season. But at the Athletic Association side of things, I think we are somewhat fortunate that our basketball drop has not been as precipitous as the girls' basketball participation drop that I know the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union is having to deal with head on.
Yeah, that's been an issue for them. Let's talk school consolidation. That was a big thing 10, 15 years ago. A lot of schools were combining. Do you hear a lot of that discussion anymore out there?
No, we have a dissolution happening in southern Iowa at Orient-Maxburg, and I know that made some news. I think there's some other districts that are, whole grade sharing for numerous levels. It is something that comes up every time, a school contacts us and discusses it. But actually what we're seeing, John, is with ESAs taking hold across the state, we've actually added over 10 member schools in the last year or two. Most of them are very small schools, but little non-public programs starting up in different places across the state, adding enrollment, and then that allows their students the opportunity to either participate in our activities or join other member schools to participate in our activities.
Chris, I know there's been some comments that we've had some smaller schools kind of combine for wrestling here in the last few years, and generally what ends up happening is if you have two 8-man programs, they become like a 2-way football school. There's discussion around here that maybe that program needs to stay kind of still in the smaller class size because you're still struggling to get numbers with those kind of teams and fill up a team. Is there any discussion at the state level of what to do when you have two really small schools combined and the numbers still aren't real big for a sport like wrestling to not move them up to that larger class size, even though the total enrollment moves them there?
That's a great and fair question, Jeff. I would say that there's no consensus answer on what a solution for that looks like. We just came out of the football advisory committee meeting last week. I know we have another board meeting coming up this week. Those are the types of issues that come up almost every meeting about what to do. And then when you look at a cross-section of schools statewide, I don't know that there's an agreed-upon solution on what that looks like, especially because if you have, two small schools that maybe aren't competitive, well, then, it might be easy to say, well, they should stay down. But now what if they're both already strong or stronger together or, a different part of the state might have a totally different issue. I think more what we've been pushed on is creating classifications and levels and opportunities for people to be competitive. And, we can't always do that in the regular season. Football is a unique sport in that way because we make the schedule. But I'm not sure that there's like a set solution for that. The girls' union tried a little basketball exemption last year that I'm not sure really took hold or affected a whole lot of schools either. So I think that's probably something that conferences and areas of the state will bring to our attention over the next 5-10 years as we have more of those smaller schools like you're talking about try to join forces.
Well, Chris Cuellar, once again with the Athletic Association, joining us here on KCIM Sports Rewind. Chris, we're going to let you go here, but thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. Glad to hear you're a police fan, and we'll let Honnold loose with the golf cart again this year.
That sounds great. I always appreciate you guys having me on. I would be remiss. I would say keep an eye on IHSAA news and our channels over the next 36 to 48 hours. So if you're listening now, you deserve to know that much. So
I was going to say that you did hint at that when I had you on the phone before that. So you won't tell us what sport, what anything else?
I'm just going to give you a good hint to keep your eyes peeled. So.
Well, that's not much of a hint at all. I mean,
I think it'll be worth your time, John. I promise.
All right. Well, for Blankman and Casey, they need a little more stronger hints than that. But we'll work on it still. But Chris, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Chris.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, Chris Cuellar once again with the Athletic Association joining us here. So state baseball back for a number of years here in Carroll, and it sounds like it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, I would imagine with the upgrades that they've made to the stadium and, everybody that volunteers at that state baseball tournament, we kid Honnold a lot, but, having sat there.
He is nicer in person than on text.
Yes.
I'll tell you that much right now.
I'm surprised we haven't gotten one of those from him yet. We will. You have? Okay. But this community, it's always seems to be the same people for the state baseball tournament. When you sit out there, as Casey and I have done the last few years and kind of covered things that are going on there, it's the same people. But, man, they're so dedicated to being there and putting in the time and making this state tournament go flawlessly. It's amazing. So as much as we tease the Jeff Honolds of the world, we tip our cap to everybody that puts in time to make that state baseball tournament go as well as it does.
I was going to say, there's a reason why people don't leave that organization.
Right.
I think it's they love to do it. Talk to Ashley at the chamber and all those folks that put it together. They love doing what they're doing. So I don't think they're going to leave those committees anytime soon.
Yeah, no. Maybe someday when I retire, I'll get in the golf cart job and can give Honnold a little bit of a break.
I don't know. I've never seen you drive a golf cart before. I've seen you drive a golf ball, which scares the what out of me.
I'm a better golf cart driver than I am golf ball driver. Let's say that.
Your golf swing is the stuff of nightmares. I'll tell you that.
It's a good baseball swing.
I don't even know about that. KCIM Sports Rewind back next.
As the athletes at your house prepare for hard work and fun of the season, remember that St. Anthony Rehab Services provides physical therapy for any sports injury that may sideline your member of the team. Sports injuries can plague kids of all ages and keep them from playing the sport they love. Athletes will be under the direct supervision of a certified and licensed healthcare professional in the newly renovated sports performance facility. If an injury is keeping your athlete out of the game, call St. Anthony Rehabilitation Services at 794-5000 for sports injury and treatment rehab.
Well, now I'm curious because I asked Chris, I said, you going to drop some rumors on us, make some news here? And he says, I got a couple things coming up here, but I can't be too specific. You guys got any guesses?
I don't know.
Might as well start the reckless speculation.
Yeah,
right?
no, I would have said the changes at state boys basketball if he wouldn't have kind of already went through those. So, right now I'm kind of maybe at a loss for words on what it could be. So we're going to have to definitely be clicking refresh for the next 36 to 48 hours.
See what happens.
Yeah.
I don't know.
NIL coming to high school?
It's already exists. No, I'm kidding.
Let's talk basketball. Kemper with an impressive win over Van Meter the other night. Ryan Clare, his best outing, a double-double.
Yep.
You had other players, Dylan Schoen with 18 points, but almost a double-double by Brock Bating, too.
Yeah. You mentioned Ryan Clare, just the second game for him with Kemper now, and I think he's showing and showed last night against an elite program in Van Meter what he brings to the table for them. Dylan Schoen has been, for a guy that saw limited minutes a year
He's
ago.
been good this year.
He's been leading them in scoring pretty much every night. And I mentioned this in the Carroll game. Brock Bading looks a little different this year. I think Sean and I have talked about it. Sean had said that he kind of told him during the offseason that you need to round out the game a little bit. He's such a tremendous player, but he's kind of known as the shooter. That guy that can hit 27, 28 feet and in. And I think this year he's added shot blocking, rebounding, and defense, and he looks like a different player. Yeah. And it's kind of similar to what his older brother Parker did when he played up at Kemper, that he came in known as a shooter. By the time he graduated 4 years later, he could beat you off the dribble, he could rebound, he could defend. He really rounded out that game, and I think you're seeing Brock do the same thing.
Yeah, Kemper arguably played their best team last night and still won by, double digits.
And we're up 26 in the third quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this Kemper team is really good. If you had the chance to go watch them, I would recommend going watching them. They don't have a weakness.
Right.
I mean, every single kid they bring into the game has a chance of dropping 20 any given night. They can be led by a different guy every single night and still win by 20 plus.
It seems like the teams that are out there, if they shoot really poorly from beyond the three-point line, they really struggle all night long. That's not Kemper.
No.
They didn't shoot well from behind the arc.
Last night.
Shot well from inside the arc, which is a kind of a lost art in basketball anymore.
It is, yeah. And I think two questions about them potentially maybe were answered last night. I don't know Van Meter's team as well this year because I haven't had a chance to see him, and I haven't really chatted with Nick Brinks, who called the game for us last night. But people would say that you get a team that's got size and can match the athleticism, and physicality. It could give Kemper trouble. Well, Van Meter's always really physical, and they always have size. So I think that question was answered last night. You have people that say, well, if Kemper doesn't shoot it really well from the outside, could that give him trouble? Last night they struggled from the outside, but still dominated a really, really good program in Van Meter and a really good team. So I think two of the questions maybe coming into the season might have been answered last night.
And I think you look at the team last year compared to this year, especially when they played Grundy center, they were forced to shoot the basketball, didn't shoot it well.
Right.
Every single one of those kids got better at driving to the hoop.
Yep.
Making sure that they could take on contact at the lane and stuff like that. And that just takes, that just as them to say, we don't want to be in that situation again. And they kind of took it on themselves to get better, and that's great to see.
Yep.
Tell you, all of our boys' teams rolled last night.
Yes.
East Sac, South Central Calhoun, Arweva, all put up huge numbers.
Yeah, there was a really good night for the boys' basketball teams last night. I think we've got some really good boys' basketball teams. Kemper's probably going to be the team because, as I said last night, and Dave Burks called me out on it, I said they're state championship good. I'm not saying they win it because I don't want to put that kind of pressure, but they are good enough.
Yeah, they're good enough to make a run.
Be able to make a run and maybe win that whole thing. But that doesn't mean they're not the only really good team in Class 2A. So I'm not putting that pressure on them and saying that they're a state champion, anything like that at this point of the season.
I was looking at some of the girls' finals. Seriously thought you guys were blurry and had a typo. South Central Calhoun, Southeast Valley.
72-7.
72-7.
Yeah, it was 28-2 at the end of the first quarter.
Southeast Valley has always been a team that's competed.
Yeah, they have. They struggled last night. They've got some things to build on. Struggled to shoot, struggled to get open and stuff. So a lot of times the South Central Calhoun defense would be able to smother them, kind of take away passing lanes. I think they had 31 steals or something on the night last night. So you get 31 steals, it's going to turn into a lot of easy buckets. And South Central shot the three well early. But what I liked what Coach Bada did last night for South Central Calhoun is, they came out with a full court press, then they dropped out of that fairly quickly. It was still in the first quarter. They went into kind of a 1-3-1. They did that for a while and worked on that, but then they moved into a 2-3. They did some man-to-man. He worked on a lot of different defensive looks last night, which could help them down the line, because at some point you might run into a team that handles your pressure, Newell Fonda, that'll handle that full court pressure. Well, now you've got other defenses that the girls have played that you can fall back on that might be able to help you win a game if your main things aren't working.
Yep. So anything else jumping out at you last week in sports?
I know the one thing I do want to mention here real quick is I'm as excited as can be. I think I've got a great doubleheader down at Coon Rapids tonight. I'm really excited for the girls' game. You got two of the premier teams in the Rolling Valley. Caitlin McAllister. Yep, Caitlin McAllister has built Coon into an elite program in that conference, and even maybe one of the top 20 teams in the state. Tom Peterson has always had Exile Kimballton as one of the top 10 programs in the state. I love the matchup of Taryn Peterson, who might be our best offensive player and scorer out of the girls, against maybe the two best defensive players in Anna Hart and Malia Clayberg. So to see which one of that battle wins out tonight's got me excited.
All right. So that game's coming up. I got it on video, too.
Yes,
right?
We'll have live video of that as well. And then do want to give a couple of shouts out to some former coaches celebrating birthdays today. Dave Burks from South Central Calhoun and their former volleyball coach, Wade Voith, both celebrating birthdays today as well. So happy birthday to those guys. Yeah.
Those guys, I mean, how long has it been since they've been on the benches?
Wade, it's probably been close to 10, and Dave's getting up there around maybe 10 years that he stepped away. But luckily for Dave, we still get him helping us out sometimes with baseball or with basketball and football. And with Wade, I still occasionally run into him because he's now a volleyball official. He tends to work north of our area, but occasionally I get a chance to catch up with Wade. So.
All right. So that is coming up. Once again, congratulations to them on the happy birthday or whatever the case may be for them. We've got lots of stuff coming up, of course, tonight.